Welcome back. I done the demo video and then the demo setup video, and then the past setup. I think there was another video that I've done, and we've gone through creating a dynamic pipeline, pushing that through. But today, this video, we're going to focus on working with VSTS Git and getting that set up so we can start doing versioning, branching, and then set up it so we can be successful in our continuous integration working with Azure DevOps. We want to focus on that today because we want to move code from the development environment, from the development ADF to the QA ADF, and we want to use in conjunction with the key vault, which we set up before. We want to maintain the connections based off the key vault. So if we look, I've already gone and done what we did before on the original demo setup. I created dev, and now I've created all QA artifacts. I think I've given access. If I hadn't, I think I gave access to this one. Maybe we might have to do it for the data lake when we get to that. We'll make sure that works, and we can set that up. So yeah, looking at the dev, to set up VSTS Git, you go to set up code repository. Azure DevOps, formerly known as VSTS Git, we have the ability to get to our DevOps account, and we're gonna add our code repository to a project that we have in the DevOps, and we'll go through that right now. So if we create, this is the ADF analytics workbench code repository. Did I spell analytics? I always spell that right. Analytics. There we go. ADF analytics. So what you do is here you can set up your VSTS Git, and the main thing to understand within the working with the branching and how this publishes out to the environments. You work in dev. You set dev up as your VSTS, your Azure DevOps repository. You set the master branch as your collaboration branch, and that what that means is when you merge with another branch, say I create my own, we'll do that, and we did that in the demo. You merge with the code through Azure DevOps, and then that will save that in the master branch, but it's not yet published out to the development Azure Data Factory. So the master branch, when you click publish, that's when it'll get pushed to the dev environment. And based on that, it'll actually generate another branch called ADF_publish, and that's where it'll generate the ARM template to deploy to QA, and then later on prod. So you can use existing collaboration branches or data factory resources that you have, so you can pull that in. We're not going to work on that today, but we're going to go ahead and save that and set that up. So that'll take a little bit, but once it's set up, we can then go into that Azure DevOps and see that we have that. Now, usually when you go in, sometimes it'll ask you, do you want to use existing branches versus I'm going to go ahead and set up my own joseph.barth branch, and we'll see that when we get into Azure DevOps. So it'll create a separate branch. I'm not going to talk about working with the team and doing the code repository in VSTS Git, because I think, or Azure DevOps Git, because Git is kind of standard, and it works a little bit different in here. I'm not going to go through scenarios on how to work with branching and checking in and how you're going to go about doing that. That's something as a company you'll have to decide. But the main thing is that you can branch out as many times as you want to, and then maintain a certain branch for testing and whatnot. But the master branch is our collaboration branch. Just to understand that, you can set a different name to the collaboration branch. So it doesn't have to be master, but just know that the collaboration branch is where you're going to end up publishing to the development environment, it's what's you can kick off your deploys from. You can actually change the different branch to deploy from, and we can look at that. But more than likely, that's where you kind of want to pull from, because that's what creates an ARM template. So, and that's how they have it set up and working. So if we were to, I guess kind of go through, I just want to make sure we hit on these couple points. I'm not exactly demoing the tool, but I'm going to anyways. I don't want you to go away empty-handed as far as what abilities you can do. So right now, we are in the Joseph Barth branch. So we're not in the collaboration branch, so we can't trigger. We can only debug. So if I go ahead and try triggering, this will run this sales LT address. Let's go see if it'll trigger. It may. But what trigger means is actually it's going to run here. So it's actually running. So it does trigger, but what it's actually doing is running the code from the data factory, not from the branch. So that's one thing. So it did allow for that, which is fine. But you're not running the code that you're not testing the code that you have in your branch, right? So we'll let that finish. In order to test the code in your branch, you actually do debug, right? So that's fine. So you actually click debug, and we're gonna do the same exact thing. It's gonna run sales LT address, which is fine. It just keeps adding to the folder. So this is good to understand, because this is where you can do your development. So if you made a change in Joseph Barth branch and you wanted to run it, you'd have to execute it through the debug, right? There's a couple different options that I've noticed recently. You can actually cancel recursively. So if you have multiple things, if I wanted to cancel this and everything that was running in parallel, I could do that. You can also view the active ones from this. Anybody can actually view the active debugs, not just you, from that window. So it goes through and it executes. So that's kind of just the quick and a little bit about that. But what also something that I've noticed is when you do have parent child packages, you won't be able to get as much in your output when you debug. So if we were to do this, and we can do that right now, I'll go ahead and debug this. What will happen is it will debug, but then it'll just kick off the copy sync the child pipeline, but you won't be able to dive in and see what's going on. So if I go ahead and debug the dimension group, we'll go ahead and see, and this will show the ability of the so that if you saw the warning, all activities inside the for each will be executed sequentially. Oh, so it doesn't even though if you have it in parallel, it's not going to do it in the debugging. Runs for each loop to define the batch count for parallel executions. So that's a good FYI. I think I'd seen that before. So it's going to run through each one separately. So this is where I'm going to kick off the cancel recursive. So cancel both of them. So that shows you kind of the abilities that you have, right? So if I were to say, okay, so I really wanted to run the dimension fact, right? And so not dimension fact group. Right now, this copy sync is just running group, and I really want to have a master package, a master pipeline. So I'm going to call this master run. And I'm actually going to move this into my dynamic folder. I like to kind of do that. And then so now I want to execute, actually want to just execute both of those at the same time. So I'm going to call this and I'm going to call this. And so this is where the master execution happens, right? Execute, mention um, group, uh, execute factory. So what we'd want to do is then call loop. We want to import wait on completion. So that's dim group. And then we come in here, auto import. Well, we don't want dim group that time. We want fact. This is the fact group. Okay. I'll go ahead and save all this. So we say we've already tested this and we know it's going to work. In order to make this change and go to the master branch, we come in here and publish now. This is one thing that they've said is where you'll do your merging based off this. This will bring up the actual location of the pull request. So it automatically create a pull request for you. And in here, what we do is this is kind of the VSTS working. It'll show you what's been changed, what you're committing. You know, it'll actually give you the number, the actual identification of the commit. This is where you'll create and merge. So I'm going to go ahead and merge. I'm going to complete this. I don't want to delete Joseph Barth. I want to keep it because I want to keep developing. But you can have it delete Joseph Barth, and I think I showed that in the one video already. So this is going to commit to master, right? So we go and click this, and if we go to master, this should still be there, right? And should show up. Okay, so it did. That's good. Now, FYI, right? You know, if you go to Data Factory, master run's not going to be there, right? Because we haven't actually published it out, right? So the thing was, in order for us to set any of this integration, continuous integration up, we actually have to publish to regular master. So we got to do that because that'll create the first ADF publish since we did the Git. We haven't done a publish yet. So if we go in here and we look at, for example, the different, so if we come into the workbench and look at the branches here, look at all the branches. It has not created ADF publish. Well, what will happen is when you deploy for the first publish, keep saying publish for the first time, it'll say, oh, look at all these new things, because everything really is kind of new, but it isn't. But we'll go ahead and say that it is, right? So because what it's going to do is actually generate that ADF publish, right? How do we refresh here? Let's see. Always keep me on my toes, Azure. So there you go. So this is the new branch, ADF publish. And this is what's going to be great for us because this is where we're going to do our deploy to QA, right? And this is where we're going to connect to. So it's like what we had loaded before, right? We have an ARM template and we have parameters, and that's what we had loaded before into even upload here. Now, I set up QA and I had uploaded what had been done in QA. We'll see if we can get it to just deploy it to what it is in QA, because that's kind of the next step, right? So let's go. Okay, so we've done that. We've created a different branch. We merged with master. We've created the collaboration, and now the ADF publish is ready. So now we need to go to pipelines. We do need to do a release pipeline. So if we come in here, I'm going to go ahead and so it looks like I already created one. I don't know if I can just edit this one. That would be great. And then let's see, releases, analytics, a new release pipeline. I'm going to go ahead and create a new release pipeline just for you guys. I'm gonna just do empty, and that first stage is gonna be the QA deploy stage. That's what I'm gonna call it because we're gonna deploy to QA. We're going to save that, right? The artifact that we're going to pull from is actually from that ADF publish, and we want to make sure we connect to that. So we go to Azure repository, Azure Git repository, and we'll select the project that we're under, and we'll go to the ADF Analytics Workbench, is where we're going to have the ADF published. As you can see, it automatically goes to that. So you can select, if you really wanted to, a different one. Well, I'll go back and show you why you wouldn't, right? Because this is the ARM template, and that's what we're going to deploy. We're going to deploy an ARM template to the ADF. So things that you can work with. You can work with the default version, the latest. You can say, okay, we can have a certain version we want to deploy. If you're going to do different things, for now, we're going to go standard, what is canned out of the box. Now, in order for this to actually kick off based on a publish to that ADF_publish, we would need to connect continuous integration. I'm going to go ahead and enable that, right? And I'm just going to add a filter. I'm going to say I want it to be, I want to make sure it creates a release every time a git push occurs in the selected repository, right? And so we want to make sure that that branch is included. I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now that that's, so what it would do, it would kick this off, but there's nothing happening, right? So if we do, it does it after it releases, or we can click manual, which it'll just sit here. We can have somebody email somebody, say, hey, you need to actually manually deploy it, but we actually want it to run continuously. You can have different things. You can have, for our prod environment, right before we hit prod, we have pre-approvals. So if you wanted to say, hey, Joseph, we really want him to approve this, and set somebody. You can set approvers by who you want to approve first, or a certain order. We're not gonna do that right now, but that option is there. There's gates. I'm not gonna teach you Azure DevOps, but I'm going to show you that it is available in there for you, right? So the next part, as I quickly move through that, sorry, if we come back to the release, we want to edit it. And of course, I seem to lose my way again. So if we go ahead and try to edit this, edit the pipeline, to get in to add the actual deployment of the Azure ARM template, you actually need to create a task. And so in order to get to that, you click in here, and this will give you the ability to add a task. Right now, we have nothing under the job, the agent job. I usually use VS 2017. I don't know for Git it really matters, but it does for Azure SQL DB or any some of the .NET projects, right? Because you want to make sure you have the latest Visual Studio that you're compiling against. So I just kind of set that standard. It's just what it is. So I'm going to go and click ARM, and that's going to be Azure Resource Group Deployment. We've added it, and if we go to it, this is where we're going to set up, and we're going to connect to that ADF_publish and get that template. Just very similar to what we did before in loading it in the first video. So if we come in here, I want to go Visual Studio Professional. We need to authorize that. So you need to have the level of security to be able to get to these subscriptions and add. And so you got to work with that with your security team or whoever's in charge of Active Directory or whatnot. But you need to be able to create or update resource. I'm not going to go through the nuances of everything here. I'm just going to kind of point out as we go along. So the resource group that we're going to deploy to, which the QA environment is in the same as the development. So if we go in here, we're going to actually do East US like we've been doing. I've been kind of making things standard. So this is where we connect to that template I just showed you in ADF. So it'll actually have it here. So I'm going to go ahead and go directly to it, ADF Dev V2 ARM template factory. So this is the beauty of the parameters. So we do have a parameters thing. So now a file, a JSON file that allows you to send your QA. So you can set up a QA one if you really wanted to in there. But what we do is that we actually override it for the environments, and that's how we're going to handle that right in here. So I'm going to go ahead and do QA. And let's go here. QA. QA. And then that's that secret, right? We need to create that secret in the key vault in QA. I should make sure we do that. So incrementally, so the difference between that and using the complete incremental handles deployment system incremental update leaves unchanged resources that exist in the resource but aren't specified in the template. So it doesn't delete things. Complete mode deletes resources that are on the template. So that's kind of the difference. So I leave it in incremental for now. You can change that as per. Like I said, the focus here is to get our ADF from dev to QA. So I'm going to save that. So, you know, I think what we're going to do is end up deploying it or kicking it off. And we can do that a couple ways. We can manually do it here, or we can make another change and save it and check it in. Let's say master run, masters run. Let's see. Okay, so every time we make a change, there's a little star, right? We'll just save that to the branch, but then we're going to publish it. Okay, so this should actually kick off. Let's keep our fingers crossed. Once it's done publishing the changes, it'll kick it off in our release. So we didn't really need to do a build. We don't really. It's not like a .NET compilation. With the .NET project, when you use that, you'd have to use a build. So we're just going to use release. So we go in here to the releases. We'll see if it's been kicked off. So it looks like it has. So if you see that, that's kind of churning. If we dive into it, we can actually see that it is in progress. It's done the agent. Let's see if the artifacts, it may fail, it may not. I can't promise anything. So, so when it says downloading the artifacts, that's that ARM template that it's actually getting. And so it gives it a directory that it passes in. Yeah, see, there's the ARM template, and then there's the parameters file, right, that it's going to use to run it against. Pretty exciting stuff. This has changed a little bit since I've started working with it. All because of the DevOps, the DevOps revitalization or something. So we'll see what happens and see if it works. But the key here is that we didn't have master. So now that it's successfully deployed, we should see a master in here, right? And then also the connections actually should entail a key vault. So if we go ahead and refresh, we see one more. We have masters run. We have successfully deployed the code to QA. Now, if we come in here, the key vault should be connected to the QA, and so that's where that setting up of the overriding the parameters is important, right? So we can do that properly. Now, the thing is, let's go ahead and see if we set up QA properly. No, we didn't. So what we need to do, first time you come in here, you may need to do some stuff, right? As you would with anything. But once you have everything set up, it's really actually straightforward and kind of intuitive and really cool, because now you can just set your parameters, and we set, like for Azure SQL data warehouse, we set a bunch of secrets up for the connection strings, right? that gave us the ability to connect that. So let's see, that's pass QA ADF v2. Let's see, pass QA KD. No. Yes, I didn't put the D. See, that's what happens. But we do, so we do need, so what I would need to do, and I just wanted to test to make sure it worked, but this will publish out, which will be fine. It doesn't ruin anything. But what you want to do is change in the pipeline release. So let's go ahead and we need to do the access policy. Look at the access policy. We do need, we didn't add the secret yet, so I didn't do that, right? So we have the SQL DB. Let me just put the connection strings. It should be the same, but I'm just gonna make sure that this is kind of crucial in that you name the secret the name as you did in dev, because that's what we're gonna pass in logically to the override parameters. Okay, so you come in here, key vault. Right. Sorry. I was like, no, I want to paste the secret in there. That needs to be the same across each. That's why we separated the QA. Or you can do whatever your heart desires. But that's how we set it up, and it works really good. So if we come in here, we can actually view, since we have the show secret. So here's the QA database. That should work. Come in here. Publish. There you go. So it successfully connected, because it's going to use the key vault from there. So I think I had mentioned before that if we go to this, I think we're going to fail on the data lake store. Let's go ahead and fix that, right? So that's ADLS has some managed instance. So we go and test it. I don't think it's going to work because we didn't set that up, right? So let's go ahead and do that. Makes sense. And let's give add it. We're not going to worry about that. I mean, we can specify if we really want to get down to the nitty gritty and understand what's ACLS and things like that. And I'm just going to give it all. So I know that's sometimes rough to understand, but that's the way it goes. So passes. So we should be able to test this, and it should succeed. I think we're good. The one thing that I didn't do was update that pipeline. So what I want to do is in the release, we want to go in here and we want to make sure that this is properly setting that parameter, overriding that parameter. So QA pass yes. So this is it right here. I think we wanted to make sure that that was correct. So if you come in here, because I had to change that, right? I remember. You guys don't remember, I remember. So this will pass that in here, and that's the override of that one, right? So we just want to make sure that's correct. So it's not D. Yeah, I mean, I guess you could set up a different name for the secret if you really wanted to. So there's a lot of ways to do different things, right? So go ahead and save that. And like I had said before, I mean, if we really want to kick something off, we can just create a new release. So we come in here, I want to create a new release, and then this will kick off that instead of having to make a change, right? What will happen is it'll deploy. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't make any changes, but we just want to verify those connections are working then. We'll do another change from dev to QA to make sure that when you do, because we actually want to test QA and make sure it's running. One thing that I haven't done is set up this. I haven't set up the QA database. Now that's a whole different story if you want to get into the database development portion. We do that with our framework and our tables. We do a SQL database that we deploy continuously. Does continuous integration with that as well. So here, we don't have any of these setups. So we can't really run the pipeline. So let's go ahead and finish this. It's the same that we did for dev. Go here. We can go deploy script. Let's see. We got to delete this. We had that problem before. That. Probably already did. Yep, so they're all done. There's already objects. So that 1, 2, 4. Okay, so we're good there. Let's hydrate because we're always thirsty. I'm gonna use that pass on. So we don't want to do the wrong one. We gotta go to a different. Okay, so now that's set up. Let's go ahead and test this. Connect to this. QA. This. Check that. As always, we like to test the simplest first and then work our way out. So we go ahead and try this. We'll go ahead and trigger. We should be able to see something in here when it's running, and that'll prove out that the connections work. Now, well, that's if the release was successful. Did I get it safely? The release was successful. I was just assuming that it was. Now, you never assume. Okay, always check. Don't be overconfident with your pipelines. There's the refresh. I was wondering where the refresh was. There you go. So I guess one way to prove out so we can go ahead and try the master's run, but let's set up let's change the order in which it's run. So this should be, so it should go, that should be last. I just want to make sure that, hey, so customer usually is second. And really, when it goes in parallel, it wouldn't matter, but it actually shows it differently. So I think, so we're going to try a couple things. So that's on dev, right? So on QA. So if we go dimension group, order by should be, customer should be last. So when we do the sequence of, well, actually, we can just do dim here. We'll do this. Yeah, we'll do the group here. It'll do all of them parallel, but the last one that's in that list of parallel executions should be the order. Although it's done parallel, obviously it's done in an order. Maybe I'm wrong there. Customer, yeah. Huh. So it might be actually a random order, but usually customer address. Yeah. We can do a sequential next, just to run a sequential for the one is address, customer address, product. Yeah, I must do it random. So it's doing it in dev and QA. So everything went okay. So yeah, let's do sequential just to kind of prove that out. I just want to. So in order to set sequentially, do it like that. Let's see how well that does. And this will just be in QA. And then our test will be done. So we'll go trigger. Address. Does matter. Address, customer address, all the way to customer. So let's go ahead and cancel that. What I want to do is make a change from dev and then push it to QA so that it's still working. Like I'm gonna just go ahead and clone something. Master's run. call it. Two. Make sure everything works. Okay, so that's successfully done there. Boy. That biggest thing is that key vault URL correct. There you go. And it is deployed master run 2. If we go in here to the connection, node D or DB or whatever it was, it works. So, you can change now on the fly the connection strings via key vault. You go to the key vault in here and you change the connection string in there. So that's how we manage and maintain that. So I think that's it for the continuous integration portion. We have set up dev QA. I think for the actual past demo, I'm going to set up and run it on prod. We'll have this up and running and working so we can do that, right? So thank you for joining me, and I hope you enjoyed the kind of way to set up continuous integration, and hopefully you can use that on your next project. Thank you.